you for joining. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see some faces that I recognize and that we know. It's great to be here with all of you today. Welcome to this online lecture on the importance of children's attachment in times of crisis, which is hosted by Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development. And we're so happy to be hosting Professor Avi Sagi-Schwartz, who is here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all of you for joining us and who have joined us from all over the world. We are so happy to see you all. I'm Sarah, I'm Deputy Director of the Mashav Carmel Training Center. And I'll just go over a few logistics before we get started. Your microphones have been muted, so please use the chat at the bottom of your screen for any questions or comments, and we will try to address them at the end of the lecture. Also, the lecture is being recorded for anyone who has missed it, and you can always reach this recording on our YouTube site for anyone, open to anyone. Mashav has had many years of a very successful cooperation with Professor Sagi-Schwartz and the Center for the Study of Child Development at the University of Haifa. Professor Sagi-Schwartz directs the International MA program on Children's Development at the University of Haifa, which has the goal of improving the lives of children around the world. The program is designed to train international experts focusing on pressing questions regarding the nature of child development and how it applies to the lives of children and their families. Every year at Mashav, we host the students of this program, and we have a great appreciation for the impact and contribution this program has to professionals in the international community and around the world. So now I would like just to introduce to you to Professor Avi Sagi-Schwartz, who is a professor of psychology and child development and founder and director of the Center for the Study of Child Development at the University of Haifa, Israel. And he is heading, as I said, the International Graduate Program in Child Development for developing countries. Professor Sagi-Schwartz's main research interests are in the area of attachment and socio-emotional development across the lifespan and across cultures, socio-emotional development and adaptation under extreme life circumstances and experiences, especially the effects of the Holocaust, as well as other violent political conflicts. Professor Sagi-Schwartz, I'm going to pass it on to you. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah, so much. Welcome, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today. After years of collaboration with the Carmel Center, Training Center, a really wonderful collaboration. And we meet from all over the world. I cannot see all the photos, but I certainly see some of my graduates in the program, which is wonderful. I see some of the students, people that I know, so it's wonderful to see you all. And we know the Corona crisis does not have many advantages. They have many disadvantages. But one advantage, at least, is that we can get together, all of us now, regardless of where we are. And I can see, I looked into the list of participants, and it's amazing to see, from all over the globe, in disciplines and positions, students in high-ranked positions, etc., etc. So we can do it all at once, which is, I don't see many advantages, but this is one of those advantages. But maybe, we are a learning community. So I guess in the future, when we overcome completely, I hope, the coronavirus crisis, we could adapt this notion of having webinars like that, more frequently. So I'm very pleased to be here today and to share with you some of our work. I will move now to, it's going to be followed by a PowerPoint presentation. I am going also to show you some video clips. So, and because it is being recorded, and by the way, Yuda, just a note to one of our collaborators here, I saw that you didn't push the recording, so I did it. So it's recording, so all set. And so it's going to be recorded, and I guess the Mount Carmel Center will be able, Mashav Center will be able to share it, but some of the video clips I cannot share, you know, on the recorded, so it's going to be edited and it's going to be eliminated for privacy issues. Okay, but definitely I wish to share with you some of the clips because I guess they tell the story more compellingly when you look at some video clips. So let me now move into presentation, see that we are all set. Okay. Okay, so the importance of children's attachment in times of crisis. You will see, I wish to make a note to begin with. We believe that attachment is important, always, okay? It might become even more important in times of crisis. And I will point about it as we move forward and show you that actually we need this concept and this mechanism actually in routine days, in the real life. And I will try to point to elements that, what happened now? It moved just a second, yeah. To elements that are related to times of crisis as we move on. Okay, so let me see now. Okay, I just have to do something here because I have something which interferes with my, I don't know how to take it away. Okay, maybe like that. Okay, I see all the menu of the chat of the Zoom. Okay, so what is the plan? Just basically, I'm going to share with you basic principles of attachment theory, why and how we become attached. I'm going to point, because we are from a very global community, as I mentioned before, so many countries. So I'm going to refer to some cross-cultural aspects. And at the very end, I'm going to pick up some selected illustrations for practice, as well as special unique populations and stressful times, which is one of the purposes of this presentation today. It doesn't move. I don't know why it doesn't move. Okay, okay, like that. Okay, so just background, two important people who developed this theory. Those of you who are more familiar would know the name John Bowlby. Those who are not so familiar, so you will know now, John Bowlby was a British psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, who established this theory, and later on, a very well-known psychologist, Mary Ainsworth, and I'm going to mention her later on, joined him, and they became very, very close collaborators. And so I guess we owe all the credits to these two wonderful people who actually founded the attachment theory. Now, going back to Bowlby, we have to remember, as I mentioned, Bowlby was a psychoanalyst with a very traditional orthodox training by very well-known psychoanalysts in the UK, Anna Freud and other people like that in the UK. I'm not going to get into psychoanalysis here now, but we have to remember that to a large extent, psychoanalysis felt that many of the reports that children make may not necessarily reflect real events that they experienced, that it was all were in a way part of their fantasies and all kinds of dynamic relationships with the parents. Bowlby felt very bad about it. Bowlby worked with maltreated children, neglected children, and he sensed that actually what he hears and what he observes are based on real events. So one point to remember, as you can see in this slide, the importance of real events and their impact on the development of psychopathology. Bowlby believed that you should believe a child. If a child tells you that something happened, it's most likely that it happened, okay? And this is a big gap between much of what he had been exposed from his own teachers, okay? And then following that, he indicated or he suggested, talked about the importance of early attachment and its impact on later emotional development. He believed that what you see at the very beginning will have long-lasting effects, and to a large extent, the meaning of separation and loss. He felt that separation and loss is a very, very meaningful issue. And not only that, and this is amazing, you know, for a person who was a psychoanalyst, he believed in a scientific approach. And because to a large extent, it was not accepted by his psychoanalyst colleagues, he found a home. And this is how Mary Ainsworth, which I mentioned before, came about to be part of this group, because Ainsworth was a developmental psychologist with a very heavy emphasis on research and evidence-based information. So he really found a house, found a home, mainly developmental psychology. Over the years, it's not only developmental psychology, I guess many areas actually are now they talk about attachment, how important it is attachment. So I just make this note because to a large extent, what I'm going to share with you today is related on empirical evidence and very systematic research. Okay, now this is something that I always present in my lectures. I don't know how, you know, I get many people who try to join, and let's see, how do I, you know, okay. It's on my slides. Okay, so Bowlby, who was a physician, he was a psychiatrist, so he was a physician by training, actually said, and this is a very well-known quote of Bowlby, he said, mother love in infancy, mother love, I highlight the love, is as important for mental health as are vitamins and proteins for physical health. And he said it from the point of view of a medical doctor, okay, that actually, if you don't provide vitamins and proteins, those in the group are medical doctors, and I saw a number of doctors in the group, know, you know, that without vitamins and proteins, there is a big risk, even, you know, the risk of death. And the same about mother love, if you don't have it, and we'll get into it later on. So this is something which I like very much, and I always cite it. So what is attachment? And I mean, the best is to take a quotation of Bowlby. He said, to say of a child that he is attached to or has an attachment to someone means that he is strongly disposed to seek proximity to and contact with a specific figure, and to do so in certain situations, notably when he is frightened, tired, or ill. So here we go to the title of our presentation. When Bowlby made this definition, Corona was not around, okay? He just said so on the basis of his experience with children in institutions. And And look at the very end of this quotation. And to do so in certain situations, notably when he is frightened, tired, or ill. Okay? And I guess the main point here is being frightened, because we know that the corona has created a great deal of frightening situations to adults and as well as children, because at least in Israel, and I know, trust that in many of the countries that are represented in this webinar, we were in the lockdown together with the families, with the nuclear families, children, parents together, having to deal with all the information being conveyed to us by the media. Okay, so and another thing which is critical, and it has to do with the cross-cultural aspect, as you will see, that he believed that there is an innate bias. It's built-in, innate bias to become attached to a primary caregiver. And this is regardless of the specific cultural niche. And, okay, so this is very important to keep in mind, that actually attachment goes across the globe. And he was influenced heavily by all kinds of researchers, one of whom was the well-known Harry Harlow, who did research in the United States at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. And he actually showed in his studies with rhesus monkeys the role of proximity, cuddling, contact maintaining, Harry Harlow, okay? So, and he actually did so by a very well-known experiment where he created mother surrogates that he used to raise infant monkeys. Parenthetically, I can say that this kind of study would not be approved nowadays by ethical committees, but at that time, he could do it. It's beyond the scope of this presentation to get into all this ethics, but we have, you know, this information that came from Harry Harlow, and what he did when he created this mother surrogate, this was a very sophisticated experiment, and with a very strong methodological, very robust methodology. He created two types of surrogates. One was a Terry mother, which is here, okay? It's like, you know, padded. And the other one was bare wire, which is here, okay? And he was trying to simulate the idea of closeness and warmth. Okay, and so what we can see here, and Harry Harlow came up with a very well-known publication, The Nature of Love, and showing that infant monkey under fearful situation would cling to a Terry mother, Terry close mother, okay? And what he did, he created a stimulus which he referred to as a typical fear stimulus for the monkey. This is a stimulus here, you could see here the figure. And what he did, he exposed the monkey to the fear stimulus. Oops, what happened here? I guess I lost, oh, here it is, yeah. We have a clip now, we have a video clip now. No sound, don't worry, you're not supposed to hear sound, so there is no sound. So you could see, he's frightening the monkey, and the monkey goes okay, he would go to the padded mother, okay, as if she's the mother, okay, trying to get comfort. And then he would expose to the bare mother with food, a kind of temptation, and the monkey is not interested. That was, you could see the food here, okay? So that was one of the studies, not only that inspired Bowlby to think about attachment and the need for closeness, okay? Now, another important concept, which is an important antecedent of attachment, is caregiver sensitivity. And Bowlby, as well as Mary Ainsworth, his collaborator, talked about elements of caregiver sensitivity, which is warmth, responsiveness, timing of response, flexibility in responding, acceptance, and coping with conflicts, all of which are components that would determine to what extent the caregiver is sensitive or insensitive to the needs of the baby. Okay, so I wish to make a very important note. You see, once a child, a baby, has an attachment figure around, once there is availability of relationships, attachment will be established, always, okay? We still don't know how good the attachment is, what the quality, but attachment will be founded once there is at least one available relationships. Now, the quality of the relationships or the sensitivity behind will determine the quality of attachment. I'm going to show you soon some examples of different types of quality of attachment. What we say in the field, secure versus insecure attachment. Now, when do we experience danger? When there is lack of availability of relationships. It happens in institutions mainly. It happens when a child loses his figures and there is no replacement, okay? Child is abandoned, okay? Then we have lack of attachment or distortion in attachment, which was of great interest to Bowlby. That's how he started, with children in institutions, okay? So we have to remember, as I mentioned, that children become attached to primary caregivers, and when the child is experiencing sensitive parenting, we are likely to observe later on secure attachment relationships. When the child experiences insensitive parenting, he is likely to develop insecure attachment relationships. Okay, this is very important to note. And let me show you something which I like very much. I think it's a very nice explanation of the attachment system. It was developed, you could see here in the bottom, the names, credit of Cooper, Hoffman, Marvin, and Powell. Most of them are from the state of Washington, in the west coast of the United States, in the city of Spokane. And they called it the circle of security. And they show what happens when caregiver is attending to the child's needs, okay? And this is a nice display, two hands, okay? One hand is a secure base, and the second hand is a safe haven. So the idea is as follows. A child, a very young child, infant, is very curious. He has the need to explore the world. And we know that once the child is starts to be in motion, he would go around to explore, which is part of the, it's a built-in system. But we know, all of us who have children or experience working with children know that at a certain point, the child will say, not necessarily verbally, it could be verbally, but will send all kinds of cues, clues. I need you, and please support my exploration. I love to explore, but I need you, okay? So this is a secure base from which the child knows that he can go and explore. And look here, it's very nice how they did it. There is a barrier. The child is trying to climb and to overcome a barrier and the child actually conveys to the secure base here and says, watch over me, help me, and also enjoy with me. And then as the child goes around the circle of security, he says again, I need you, please welcome my coming to you, don't reject me, accept me as I am. You know, I have a reason why I am, you know, why I need you. So the other hand, actually, the same person serves not only as a secure base, but also as a safe of heaven for the child. So this is a circle of security, okay? And they say always, and we'll get back to it when we talk about the corona and the crisis, always. But you could see already now that actually it fits not only regular situations, but crisis situations. Always be bigger, always be stronger, always be wiser, and be kind with me altogether. And whenever possible, follow my child's needs. And whenever necessary, and this is very important, take charge. Certain situation, you should take charge, not me. I don't have the capacity to take charge. So this is very important to remember, okay? So basically, when the child is approaching here, and like that, and he says, please protect me, comfort me, delight in me, and most importantly, help me to organize my feelings. I still don't know how to organize my feelings. Okay, this is very important to keep in mind. Okay, so I just want to do a little exercise with you now, okay? Listen, look at the picture and listen to the music, okay? And wait, where is it? Why? Oops, I don't know. Oh, okay. It's very brief. One more. Be patient. One more. Oops. Oh. Just push. Okay, so we could have a full session just about this little clip, but let me tell you how it was evolved. These great people, they called it shark music, and you could see the difference. You could see it's the same nature, the same landscape, You walk around the landscape, beautiful landscape, and you have a very nice music behind, very pleasant music, which goes hand in hand, in harmony with the landscape, as opposed to the other music, which is very disturbing, really disturbing, and they called it charm music. While they called it charm music, these guys in Spokane, state of Washington, are clinicians, and they started to use a circle of security procedure, something to intervene with mothers at risk. And one mother, when she was in treatment, she said to one of them, "Oh, you know, now this is my shark music." She got some reflection about what she was doing with her child. And she said, "This is my shark music," meaning that something which comes in my mind, which interferes with the beauty of my child. I cannot see the beauty of my child because I'm very preoccupied with some noises in my mind. Those of you who know the work of Selma Feiberg, the well-known ghost in the nursery, actually there is a ghost, kind of ghost in our mind sometimes, which interferes with what we do. So this is a shark music, and you can think a lot about it, and it's related also to the idea of sensitivity. To what extent the parent can be sensitive, and to what extent the sensitivity may be jeopardized by some noises which come as shark music if we use this kind of metaphor. So I think, you know, this really brief clip shows very nicely the distinction between very harmonious relationships versus disharmonious relationships. Okay, so yeah, I talked about it. So I could skip these slides about what it is, the shark music, and they do it very nice. You see, like here in this picture, you could see the shark, which actually overshadow the child who needs attention here. Okay, she doesn't say it because she's preoccupied with the music, with the bad music that she has. Okay. Now I want to show something very, very impressive. It's real. It's something which was picked in a shopping center in Boulder, Colorado, the United States. And you see a father with a child in the shopping center. It's a shopping center. It's outside, not a closed one. And you will see the circle of security, how it works, and how the child is going back and forth, back and forth. This is a child who is a bit older, but still young enough to see nicely this idea of the circle of security.
He's in this game these days where he's back and forth a lot. Like he'll play going away. Hi.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. And he'll walk around the circle and he gets real excited about coming back. He's been gone for 30 seconds, but it's like he's been gone for
Oops, I'm sorry. I'll tell you what happens.
years. Hey, hi, that guy. I mean, it's a fun game for me to watch him step out into his world. He's so much more capable now than he was just a few months ago. He's able to tell me more about what he wants or what he needs, or if he's frustrated about something, he can tell me sometimes what it is, or closer. Or he could tell me, and sometimes I can understand. It's more like what it is. Oh, hi. Did you come back?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Can I wipe your nose again?
Yeah.
Thank you. It only takes a little bit, you know, that sort of refueling happens real quick, but it's sort of got to happen.
What do you mean refueling?
Well, like he runs down some sort of charge of being close to us, and then he comes back and he needs a little bit of recognition or just a touch. Or... Yeah, you're high on that rock. He's pretty little, and it's a big world, and I can't blame him for wanting to stay somewhat close. but this balance between going out to explore and wanting to come back in and sort of, you know, have the contact again.
All down. I go up that rock.
As Lucian goes out to explore and gets farther from the reassurance, the protection of his parents, he's talking to himself.
Tap down.
This conversation inside our heads, keeping ourselves company, goes on for most of us for the rest of our lives. Lucian is taking not just words and ideas with him, he is taking an emotional tone, an attitude toward himself, the very feel of his parents.
How you doing? Where you been?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Jump, 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 jump.
Our parents are, unconsciously, always on our minds. Moving out alone into this big, sometimes overwhelming world, we need them with us, inside our consciousness. And so we take them, internalize them, as an emotional tone toward ourselves. And we take them, however they are, toward us, kind or angry, available or disappointing.
I go up that rock.
Okay. Whoa. Want to jump?
Yeah.
Every moment of our lives, we exist and function within this environment of our internal consciousness, shaped in these first years. This internal environment is more influential to our sense of well-being, our happiness or our misery, than anything else. More influential than the external environment in which our bodies move, where we live, what we do, whom we're with. This is why the first year or two of life and how we are treated then are so important.
Who's those boys?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're your new friends?
Yeah.
Playing a game with them?
Yeah.
What game are you playing?
Yeah.
What is that?
Running.
Running.
Yeah.
Running.
I guess I stop here because time is going fast, and but you got the idea of the circle of security and how sensitive the father is and how secure the child feels with the father. Okay. Now I want to share with you, Sarah, I have to, you know, time is going fast, but I sense that all these clips are very useful. So if people are patient, you know, I may skip, you know, some of the slides later on, but I think, you know, that this one is going to be very nice for the people to see how we measure attachment. And and as you can see here on the slide, strange situation with secure and insecure infants. It's called the strange situation. You will see a nice explanation by a colleague from Stony Brook University, Professor Everett Potter. And actually what you see here a procedure that was developed by Mary Ainsworth, the collaborator of John Bowlby. So, okay. Bowlby and Ainsworth, a picture of both of them. You have explanation, what is attachment security now? And And what is attachment insecurity?
We'll have you do a brief interaction with some play. Then, in just a few minutes,
This is Everett Water, Professor Everett Water.
in the door.
Everett Waters is studying how far our childhood experiences influence our behavior as adults.
We'll come down to the lab.
Okay.
We'll do this now.
This experiment, which I watched through a two-way mirror, is designed to gauge how secure is the crucial relationship between mother and child.
This bunny is going to go here, and that bunny will be on top.
The value of the test has been established in studies that would watch a child, 1-year-old, and then follow it up and interview them about the relationships to their parents when they were 21 years old. So we're quite confident in the long-term significance of this relationship.
After several minutes' play, the mother is signaled to leave the room.
Mother will leave the room now. This is the first time that the child in this room.
I'll get you back in 1 minute.
And the child gets very upset, which is expected at this age. It's a normative, normal response.
Just waiting for you. I feel that she'll survive. The key moment in the experiment is the child's reaction to her mother's return.
The important clue is whether the baby's able to become calmed down by the contact with the mother, get back to play. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. You see, when the mother was out, she was only interested in the mother, no interest in the toys. Now she has a contact with the mother. She's beginning to show a little interest in the environment, and shortly she'll be right back with the toys where we started.
So you would call this a secure one?
Yes, yes.
It's certainly much happier.
Now, this is an insecure baby. We get the measure of the baby's play before the separation. When the mother leaves, the baby cries, goes to the door following her. Now, we sent the mother right back in. The point here is not to distress the baby. We're just trying to challenge it. The baby puts her hands to her face in a sad expression.
You can see how the child is avoiding the mother.
When she picks her up, she keeps her head down, her arms out, and then she sits in the chair holding the baby. The baby's still sullen. He's low-keyed.
So you would call this insecure
Yes,
attachment?
insecure. He's avoidant. He's not engaging her, and it's not the reunion's not effective. And it's important to remember here that the thing that upset him was her absence. Her return should be the solution to his problem. Now this is another pattern that we see in babies who are not good at using their mother as a secure base at home. This baby is also insecure. But you'll see, we get a look at his play before the separation. The mother's left. And when she returns, she picks him up. He can't calm down. He's still upset. She offers a toy to amuse him or to comfort him or to distract him, and he slaps it away. She offers another. He slaps it away.
The child is very angry.
He's angry. We call these babies resistant or ambivalent because they both want her back and yet can't use the contact. We think that the difficulty is that in the past, when he sought comfort, she's been inconsistent as to whether she's available and responsive or not.
Do you think these really are indications for vulnerability for depression later in life?
I don't think that insecure attachment in infancy is the cause of depression in adulthood. However, when a child learns that he can trust his mother to be available and responsive, he's beginning to learn that you can trust other people, that you can turn to them when you're in trouble. The baby is also taught by the mother, as he gets older, how to understand his emotions, how to construe events that happen to them. You know, every bump in the road is not a disaster. This is a powerful asset when you encounter difficulties in life.
Okay, so again, we could have, you know, a full session about, and our students actually learn how to use this procedure and how to analyze it. It's quite complicated and requires time, but this is the gold standard assessment in the area of attachment research as far as infants are concerned, to determine whether the child is secure or insecure. Now, there are also situations, and this is highly related to not only times of crisis, but it happens for some children. Some children, even before the corona, experience times of crisis. So what I'm going to say here is definitely relevant to our corona times. Frightening parental behavior, when it characterizes the relationships between the adult and the infant. Okay, so actually what we have a situation that we call it the parent-child insecure interaction paradox. And what is a paradox? A paradox is, as we could see in the circle of security, that the parent is supposed to be the source of safety, okay, for the child. The child will smile. But what happens when the same figure becomes the source of fear? We saw the Boulder Boy. The Boulder Boy was wonderful. The father was all the time attentive. But what happens when, and I do it in red, you know, like a red alarm, you know, when the same person is the source of fear. On the one hand should be the source of safety and source of fear. So what we say in this case, that we might experience the collapse of the attachment strategies in the child. The child don't know what to do. Should I go to the adult or should I avoid? Because he's the fearful stimulus. So the solution, so to speak, is a collapse of the attachment strategies. And Mary Main and Eric Hesse actually coined it as a vicious circle of fright without solution. Some children don't have solutions for this paradox. And it looks, and actually, then they develop a disorganized attachment. And these infants show momentary absence of an organized strategy for dealing with their separation, distress, and mother's return. And it looks like that. As we said in the circle of security, I need you, but you're so frightened or frightening that I have no one to turn to and I don't know what to do. Now, this, we have to remember that, especially in times of crisis. In the corona situation, the parents were frightened. And the extent to which parents conveyed this self-frightened behavior may be conveyed to the child, okay? And may end up with some negative outcomes on the part of the child. And it looks like that. What you will see when I click this part, you will see like many children going around, but it's not many children. The idea is that it's the same child going around himself, doesn't know what to do because he doesn't know how to solve this conflict, this paradox. So it looks like that. Oops, no. Yeah, okay, like that. See, same child going around, doesn't know what to do. And think about it as adults. What happened to us when we are kind of sometimes kind of frightened? We don't know what to do, so we do aimless kind of behavior, which is bizarre sometimes, even us as adults. There is the lifespan perspective, and again, if we use, I always like to take the quotations of Bowlby, and he said, all of us, from the cradle to the grave, are happiest when life is organized as a series of excursions, long or short, from the secure base provided by our attachment figures. And it happens to us as adults all the time, okay? And here we go again to normal situations. Under normal conditions and even mildly to moderately distressing circumstances, we have the emotional capacity to self-comfort. We have learned, we internalize the capacity to self-comfort, and actually we call it internal working model, meaning that we know that there are always significant others we can approach or comfort and approach or comfort and support who will soothe us in any situation, even as adults. And actually there is a balance between the exploration and attachment systems. We always look for, we want to explore, but at certain point we need the attachment touch. And we seek for a balance between the need for proximity and the need for exploration. So now go, to our adult life. Look at this picture. This guy is traveling. Okay, we don't travel now, but we will come back traveling. Now, he has a phone. He has a cell phone. Each of us has a cell phone. What do we do when we travel around? Why do we go? Well, why do we go to travel? We go to travel because we love to explore, right? We go for holiday because we would like to explore. Now, on board, we have to shut down the telephone, the smartphone. Now, we fly from Israel to Europe, from Israel to Africa. You fly from Asia to the United States. Phone is shut down, okay? What do you do the moment that you go, even before the customs? Some of the customs authorities say, please don't activate the phone. You're not allowed, but we do it. Why we do it? We do it because even before we start to explore completely, we have the need to get back to the attachment figure. So usually we open up and we activate the smartphone, and what do? We call back home. To the children, to the parents, to the spouse, to whoever is the significant other for us. And this is what we mean that there is a lifespan perspective. It's something in our bones, in our DNA. Okay, this kind of need to keep the balance between exploration and attachment. Okay, now we have to go quickly. Tell me, Sarah, what do you say in terms of the time? Because I see we started, I guess, at 2:10, right? After the introduction. What do you say, Sarah?
Yeah, I think you have another about 10 minutes, and then we'll open
10 minutes? Okay, so I'll skip. Yeah. So I'll skip some slides later on, and what I can do, I'm going to send you my PowerPoint presentation so you can share it with all the audience. Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. So because I have, in 10 minutes, I have to skip, some of it. So okay. Let me go just quickly about the cross-cultural validity of attachment theory. That's the second dimension of my presentation, and it's important to you. And what I can also do, you see here a citation of in the Handbook of Attachment, which is a Bible, so to speak, of the attachment area. And we have a chapter here, Messman, Van Eichendorn, and myself. And it's a chapter, I can also send it to you, Sarah, and you can, circulate it to the participants. And you could go into various issues of cross-cultural aspects of attachment. But basically, and again, I want to mention, and I mentioned before that Mary Ainsworth was collaborating with Bowlby, and actually she went to the UK, and then she, for some personal reasons, she went to Uganda, and actually she started to develop the strange situation in Uganda. And that's a very well-known publication of Mary Ainsworth, Infancy in Uganda. And actually, we have evidence now, and if you go to the chapter, which I'm going to share with you, you'll see that we have evidence from Africa, Southeast Asia, USA, Europe, and Israel. Many studies suggesting the following hypotheses, okay? One of which is universality. That is, in Western countries, all infants, right? I highlight, all infants become attached to one or more specific caregivers. But you have to have a caregiver who is attending your needs, okay? But if you have one, you will get attached, regardless of the culture. That's one thing. The second thing, which I already mentioned, is the attachment exploration balance. Always there is a balance between these two, I would say, conflicting motivations. One is to explore and to go apart, and the other one is to get closer to the attachment figure. And the next one is normativity. We have data showing, especially in Western societies, but also in other societies. I simply have to skip it. So, but if you go to the chapter, you will see the chapter deals about attachment in Africa, South Asia, in South America, and other places. But the majority of infants are securely attached, which is nice, which is good, you know, good sign. You know, the children, you know, are securely attached in contexts that are not inherently threatening to human health and survival. When we have threatening human health, something which threatens human health and survival, then you will not see secure attachment. And the other thing is that attachment security is dependent on child rearing antecedents. We know about sensitivity. If the parent is sensitive, more likely to develop attachment security. If the parent is insensitive, more likely to develop attachment insecurity. Okay, and the last one is competence. That there are outcomes, secure attachments. Once we have secure attachment, it will lead to positive child outcomes in a variety of developmental domains. And if we have attachment insecurity, we will get less positive results. Okay, now that's going to be the last part of my presentation. I will skip some of them because of time shortage. I want to show you some selected illustrations of practice and special unique population and stressful times, okay? I have a colleague at the Center for the Study of Child Development, Professor David Oppenheim. He's doing research with autistic children. And what he found, that autistic children get attached as well, okay? What he and his co-workers found is the children with autism only appear to lack social motivation. They have one aspect, which is very important, but it's social motivation. That's a barrier, okay? That's a deficiency. But the attachment system of children with autism seems to be intact. He found that it's the same thing, what we saw in the strange situation that Everett Waters presented to us in the video clip. And half even form secure attachments. Half of the autistic children form secure attachment. I cannot show you, because of privacy issues, wonderful, you know, clips showing an autistic child, low IQ, low communication, how attached he is to the mother, which has a very promising story here in terms of treatment and intervention. And this is certainly a very situation of crisis for parents who get informed that their child is autistic with all the limitations. Okay, I'll skip this one because we don't have time. And oops. I want to finish. Okay. Just want to mention that, you know, what happens when you have catastrophic parental loss during childhood, life in institutions. Okay, so here you could see what happens if we sum up what we have looked into it. When you have children who experience low-risk situation, which is, well, I have to be careful here. It depends on what parts of the globe we look into. And I know that here we have many, many people from very, very low SES countries. So what I'm saying that at least in Western society and in those places in non-Western societies where there's an attempt to create a normative situation, we will find only 25% insecurity of attachment. Now in middle risk, like in center cares, in low quality center cares, 50% of the children, and I skipped this slide, so I'll send you the presentation, you will see the slides where we talk about center care, where we find 50% of the kids being insecure. In very high risk situation, basically of maltreatment, 80% are insecure, many of whom are disorganized, of the kind that I showed you with the freeze, but not only freeze, there are other kinds of markers. And in disaster areas that some of you, I know, come from, where you have genocide, HIV, loss, abandonment, and institutions, we see more profound symptoms, and even, terrorists, child soldiers, and things like that. So very, very negative outcomes, and definitely a distortion, complete distortion of the attachment system, okay? And this is something which I can also send you as an attachment, and you can share it, Sarah. It's a consensus statement of group care for children and adolescents. It's a group of people. I was lucky enough to be part of this group. Very leading people who met about 4 or 5 years ago in New York to discuss the implication of attachment and institutions. And as you will see in this paper, it is highly recommended in no matter what it is, crisis, no crisis, definitely in crisis, that we have to find children who lose parents for various reasons. And it so happens, unfortunately, more in low SES countries because of illnesses and violence and things like that. We have to find a foster care family rather than institution. And I know it's very, very difficult. I know for my students in the international MA program in child development for developing countries, how difficult it is to find foster care. It's difficult in Israel as well, in the USA, in Western societies. But this is certainly, that's a consensus statement, showing that whatever happens, we have to find a family. If we don't find a family, the likelihood of the child to become a criminal, to violate the law and to be violent is very, very high. So I'll send it to you as a kind of supplemental information. Okay, now let's look, and this is going to be the end, special considerations in times of crisis. I was trying to point to it as we moved on, but definitely here in times of crisis, and we know it from the experience of the corona, at least I guess most of the societies, the attachment system may get activated, simply gets more activated more strongly, especially with children, but also with adults. It happens to children a lot, but also to adults. So what I could say is a kind of recommendation that it certainly makes sense to seek physical proximity or closeness to significant others when things become more frightening. And there was a lot in the media, at least in our media, lots of debates what to do with the children and whether or not, to create a regularity at home. And from the point of view of attachment, I mean, regularity, first of all, in terms of relationships. Child feels secure, and Zoom, learning, schools, distant learning, and all kinds of debates in the media how to go about. We say in times of such extreme crisis, first of all, let the child get closer to the parents. This is fine, okay? And as I say in this slide, the corona crisis is one of those times, definitely, we know, okay? And we know, when we talk about children, that they may have hard time falling asleep. What do? All kinds of practices about sleep. Shall we allow him to be close to us or not? And the child may become anxious about being infected by the coronavirus. We as well, as adults. So from the point of view of attachment theory, the message is time to hold your child as much as they want. Hug them. Tell them how much you love them. And even let them sleep with you if needed. This is fine from the point of view of attachment. It's not going to break any barrier. I know people are very concerned about barriers. No, this is something which is needed. It's very high, okay? And alongside, explain as much as possible. Children we need to understand as adults, and children as well. They need to understand, and it will help them a lot if we explain to them in the necessary language, depending on the age, okay? And so again, I go back to the opening. I'm not going to go, I just, highlighted in yellow. In times of crisis, this become even more important. Always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And whenever possible, follow my child's needs. The child says, I have needs, follow it. And whenever necessary, you as an adult, you take charge. You should take charge. This becomes even more important in times of crisis. I want to share with you a very nice element, what I call attachment go to the government, okay? I guess many of you have experienced lockdowns. In Israel, at a certain point, there was a very, very strict lockdown. And the only thing that we could, few things that we could do. One was to go and buy food. The second was to go and get medical services. And the other thing was to go no more than 100 meters away from our home. Only 100 meters, that's it, okay? Other than that, we should have stopped and got, at home. Luckily enough, Israel is ranked as a very successful country in terms of dealing with the corona, and probably, still people looking for explanation, but to some extent, probably it's a strict lockdown and the compliance. People basically complied and did not go out. But what do you do with divorce? Look here how divorce goes, how attachment goes to the government. Now, what do you do when you have divorced families and you have a little child with two homes? Mother lives in one place and the father lives in another place, and you have this lockdown, okay? So what happened is that, as I said, I called it, and you see, just checking on you, because social distancing does not mean emotional distancing. And I think that the term social distancing is the wrong term. Actually, we talk about physical distancing, not social distancing. Social distancing we can establish also from distance. So the story here is that despite the strict lockdown, in certain times, there was, as I said, very, very strict lockdown, children in divorced families were allowed to move between the homes of mothers and fathers to maintain contact with them. And I can tell you, I know how it so happened. It happened because a group of family lawyers who got exposed to attachment theory. I know these family lawyers, and we do seminars to these family lawyers. They wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, to Netanyahu, and said, you should, in all these restrictions, you should remember these families. And those in Israel who know, we, on the media, we saw what we are allowed and not allowed to do. There was a statement saying that children in divorced families can move around despite the lockdown, which is very pleasing to see that they listen to us. On the other hand, they did not listen to us when it came back to daycare issues. Again, those who in Israel know about, we just a few days ago, actually it was yesterday, I guess, yesterday was the first day that basically lockdown was almost completely released, including returning to the school system and to the daycare system. I'm talking about birth to 3. we did a lot to explain to them that they have to do something about it. The children stayed at home for 2 months, 3 months, and they even forgot, they forgot, they don't remember their caregivers. So please, talk to the experts, but probably the economic stress and the economic force, and I know that in many, many places, there is this big tension between the need to protect health and the need not to allow the economy to collapse. And in Israel, they decided now time to not to allow the economy to go down as it went, and they simply didn't listen to the experts as far as many, many issues, part of which is the attachment theory. Okay, and we could, end up with this one. This is a very nice, maybe you saw it, it's not my invention, but it's highly related to attachment. And definitely is related to attachment theory. Okay, just to tell you, many people deserve credit for this presentation. It's my group, our group in Haifa, and many people who did dissertations and postdocs and theses. Just to mention, and also a very dear Dutch collaborators, friends and collaborators in the Netherlands. And also, I skipped the slides, but 2 great colleagues, Klaus and Karin Grossland from Germany. And thank you so much for your attention. And I guess we are open to questions if there are some questions.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Sagi-Schwartz. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. We have a few questions we will.
Yeah, so let me, I need to put my earphones now. I have some hearing problem. When I had to listen to myself, it was okay, but when I have to listen to other questions, you are going to read the questions?
Yeah, okay, there's a few questions that I will read to you.
No, so this is fine. I don't need it. I guess I can go with it. I hope. If not, I will put my.
Okay, so we will start, and I will start by reading out some of the questions.
Yes.
And I see that there are a few that are the same. So one of the questions is, during this lockdown, the situation of children at the moment, there's an increase in domestic violence at home. And do you have any effective models or tools or a way that we can help children that are going through this, and parents?
The question, if I have tools to deal with domestic violence?
Or suggestions during this domestic,
well, it's not, it's not my area, but it makes, I'm not sure, people got so preoccupied, with health issues, and I definitely think that at least in the Israeli context, they gave all kinds of hotline numbers for people to call, knowing that the likelihood, at least in some families, is to observe family violence, domestic violence. So the tools, it's very difficult, especially, when, and again, I guess, we might expect, I don't want to be gender based, but I guess, more violence on the part of men toward women.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that women could not be violent, the other way around, but basically, and toward children, maltreatment, and, So definitely there are all kinds of tools. I don't have time, to deal with it, but these are, the typical tools that you try to work, which becomes very, very difficult when you are locked, at home, and you cannot, but and especially very difficult to communicate with the hotlines, you know, because you are locked, you know, you are not free to talk freely and openly. This is a very, I'm not familiar with the data and whether or not data were collected, but, you know, anecdotally, I can hear about issues that popped up, definitely. But there's also, like, you know, I'm a developmental psychologist. And those of you who know what developmental psychology is, know that developmental psychology is an optimistic profession. It's a profession that believes that the spectrum that we have, you know, of our capacity of resilience is much wider than we tend to believe. So the other side of the coin, the other side of domestic violence, and again, I don't have data, but I just hear anecdotes in the television and the media, that maybe some people profited, made benefits out of it, you know. Some couples who were in some kind of maybe tension before and conflicts have learned to take advantage of being together and to know each other better, and maybe it helped improve the relationships. But definitely we could see, you know, both sides of the coins.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a question, maybe you partly addressed it during your presentation, but how to address the issues of anxiety, stress, and fear for children in this lockdown situation?
So what is the question?
How can parents better address the issues of anxiety, stress, and fear?
Yeah, I guess I mentioned it quickly. Yeah, I guess I mentioned it quickly. And, you know, I think that relationship is the core point in any kind of interaction with children before learning, before cognition. It sets a ground for everything. And definitely being locked at home together, and children got exposed to the television, to the media, and to some of the stories were frightening to us. And at least in Israel, I can tell you, and you know, Sarah, you know, because we all, you know, watched it, you know, bringing all these experts. Some talk about a disaster which is going to end up at the beginning. As we remember, they said that they anticipate million registered diagnosed people and at least 10,000 people who will die. Now you listen to it and you hear it from, you know, high officials, you know, medical people, and we ended up with only quote unquote, I mean, but 260 or something, you know, dead people. So I think that, you know, when they said try to create a regularity, a plan for the day, like in a school system, you know. I don't think that in a school you need, you know, a very organized, I think that, you know, it's very convenient to the teacher to have an organized system because that's a way to keep control over the children. But children are very cooperative, and I guess that the most important part during this Corona time was to provide the circle of security to the children. You know, that they could, even at home, and they explore, and it's a safe haven for them. It's home. They know the home, it's the beds, but still the attachment system went up, definitely went up. And the most important thing is to be close to the child and to hug and to accept and to understand, even if you violate some, I don't know, some rules, okay? I always give, you know, people, and maybe I could end up, you know, I now remember, Bolby was interviewed by the BBC. Not, you know, just before he passed away. He was close to the age of 90 or around it. And he was asked, Professor Bolby, what do you say about Pinook? How do you say Pinook? Spoiling?
Yeah, spoiling.
Over-spoiling. And Bowlby said, I don't know this term. There is no over-spoiling. I mean, spoiling is wonderful. And he said, so what about barrier? What about, limits? He said, well, those who develop secure attachment, part of which because of spoiling and closeness, will listen more carefully to an adult who tells them not to do that and that. And usually the example that used was, don't touch the plug of the electricity. We know that little children, they like to play with the plug. And a child who has this experience of a child, of a parent who develops secure relationships and sensitivity will comply. The one who will not comply is the one who avoids, the one who does not feel secure. So going back to the question, I think that, love, closeness, even if it was at the expense of some violating day-to-day limitations. I mean, it was a major event in our life. And we have to remember, people lost jobs, all kinds of things together. It's not only there, and in some societies, we heard about a very, very high rate of death because of all kinds of reasons. So, okay, I don't know if I gave the answer, but at least, attachment is very critical concept here, which definitely explains why more children as well as adults got more anxious, and which is obvious and normative. It's normative, it's not pathological.
Thank you, thank you. A specific question, is the attachment theory and separation anxiety, are they connected?
I couldn't follow, so maybe I have to put my, okay, I'll try to.
Can you hear me? Let me speak louder.
No, it's a matter of sometimes, the sound in the speaker. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Are attachment and separation anxiety, are they connected? Attachment theory and separation.
Okay, I have to explain. I didn't have time, and you see, you saw this video clip of Everett Waters, who explains the strange situation, which is based on separation. Okay, what we do clearly, we separate the infant at a certain age from the parent in the experimental room. We do it because we know that children have separation anxiety as a normative developmental milestone in her life. And it does not contradict attachment. It simply shows that the child has a natural separation anxiety, and the attachment is exactly the tool to reduce it. And so you could see three types. You could see a child who comes back, and once, not a mother who comes back, in the moment that the child was very stressed, separation anxiety, and the moment that the mother came back, it was like, automatic shutdown. The child no more cries and goes back to sleep, okay? And here we have the balance between exploration and attachment. But it takes place in secure relationships. This child at the age of 12 months, let's say, developed a working model, internal working model, that he can trust the mother. He knows that she will come back, and he knows that she knows how to take care of him. As opposed to the other two types that we saw that were explained, avoidant insecure and resistant insecure, but the children simply cannot connect to the mother, which probably has a history of some insensitive relationships. Okay, So in separation anxiety, definitely at this time when we talked about the formation of attachment, is a very normative, developmentally appropriate milestone that we should see, and it's not contradict at all attachment. What you could see in the circle of security, all this, I need you, please look at me, please help me, are all kinds of separation anxiety. I'm going away, and oh, I cannot do it on my own anymore, so I need you. Be my secure base, be my safe haven. So actually, the attachment system is a system which helps reduce the anxiety. And the more sensitive the relationships, the more likely it to happen.
Okay, thank you so much for that detailed explanation. That's great. It's really wonderful. Another more specific question about attachment theory. What area of age is the major time to build attachment? And how long does it take to build it?
Okay, that's a 1 million question. I'll do it quickly because it's. But basically, we think that the first 2 years are very critical. But Bowlby also told us, and we studied it, that it's not fixed. But to a large extent, it's fixed. But it may change, and there are all kinds of ways to change it. But yeah, from the point of view of attachment, the first 2 years are very important. This is why we strongly advise when you have abandoned children, and sometimes if you don't have, let's say in certain societies, any choice to put them, at least during the very beginning, in institutions and temporary solutions, is to find permanency as soon as possible. We know that, very difficult things that happen with children, I'm talking very, 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 very extreme things. In the first year, if you don't do it, during the first year, it may have scars, a long-term scars, and we have especially evidence from institution-based studies. Basically, first 2 years are quite, I don't want to say critical, because we know we also have studies showing that even adults could change from being insecure to secure by treatment, by psychotherapy, attachment-based psychotherapy, by spouses, by partners, by all kinds, what we call earned security. You may earn your security if there are some interventions, but basically it becomes more difficult. It's not easy. It's not an easy process. So first 2 years, I would say, very sensitive.
Okay, thank you so much. One last question.
Okay.
And then we will finish.
Pleasure.
Okay, there's a question for specifically for early childhood educators.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion for them during this time of COVID-19, when they are separated from the children, of what they can do to help the anxiety, lower the anxiety and stress of the children?
You mean in this to educators?
Yeah, for educators.
I tell it not only in crisis situation. You know me, Sarah, by now. When we talk about, you bring all these groups of, and I hope to see them again soon. In your training center. Yeah, first of all, first and foremost, in the school system for educators, be humane, be emotional, be accepting. I mean, worry less about techniques, worry less about outcomes that we get from the Ministry of Education. Usually we have to pass this and that kinds of showing, that we are the best country in the world in mathematics or in whatever. I mean, children will feel exactly as they feel safe with the parents. If they feel safe emotionally, relationship-based in school, they will be a better students. Each child has, I would say, each of us has a spectrum of capacities. okay, which are built in, which is in our genetics, and the capacity to move into the higher level of our spectrum is when we feel secure, when we feel that we have around us people who are willing to interact with us and to allow us to implement and to materialize this kind of capacity. So my message to educators in regular times, definitely in times of Corona, is be patient. And that's, when I said that we failed with the daycare system, that they allowed them to go back yesterday and I skipped the slides, the low, so the daycare system in Israel is not very high quality for various kinds of reasons. So it becomes even more critical when you let the child go back to a system that to begin with was not very high quality. That's my message, attachment theory, the message, and going back again to Bowlby. There is no over-spoiling. I mean, spoiling is good. You earn. At the end of the day, you earn. If you do it rightly, if you set limits, and if you use also techniques. But first of all, relationships. If the child learns to trust you as an educator, which means that as an educator, you have to take into consideration that you have 20, 30, 40, I don't know, different individuals in your setting. And different individuals means that you have to approach them individually. But it's very difficult, It's easier, okay, you sit here and you listen to me. And then you see some children become irritated, not attentive because of attention deficit, because of a boring teacher, or what have you, okay? So that's my message, be with the child.
I think that's a great way to finish today's session with this great, wonderful message that you end with. Thank you so much, Professor Sagi-Schwartz, for joining us for this excellent and very informative and wonderful presentation that you gave us. I think you've given us a lot of things to think about, and thank you so much for spending this hour and a half with us. And thank you to everyone as well, everyone here for joining us. As I wrote in the text in the chat, please send me an email if you would like the presentation. I put it in the chat, and you also have our email when you registered for this Zoom call. So please send us an email, and Professor Sagi-Schwartz has graciously agreed that we can send out his presentation, and let us know, and we'll send it out to you. Once again, a very, very, very big thank you to everyone, and especially to Professor Sagi-Schwartz. Toda rabba.